Hello everyone, welcome to the video series on Azure Load Balancer services. This is the second video of the series where I will do a hands-on demo on internal Azure Load Balancer. You see on my screen, this is the architecture that we are going to implement today. We will have a virtual network. Inside the virtual network, we will have two subnets, one for Azure Bastion and another for our VMs, which will act as the backend pool for our load balancer. We are using Azure Bastion so that we don't assign any public IP to our VM to access. Okay, Azure Bastion basically will connect to our test VM. We'll be creating total of three VMs, two VMs which will be act as a backend pool for our load balancer, and one VM so that we can test if our load balancer is working properly or not. Now, if the VM wants to connect to the internet for updates and or anything, a public IP will be assigned to them dynamically through the NAT gateway. So let's head to the portal and start our demo. So I have logged into the portal. So let's start our demo by creating the NAT gateway. We'll search the NAT gateway. Okay. Click on create. We'll give it a name of LB gateway. Region will keep it as East US and SQ as standard. Okay, because it supports zonal deployment. Ideal timeout, we'll keep it as 5 minutes. Okay. Now it needs an IP, right? So let's assign an IP to it. Okay, we'll create a public IP which will name it as net PIP, which I will take this default name. We'll click on OK, save, and do and create. We'll say create. We'll wait for the deployment of the gateway, and then we will create our virtual network with Bastion subnet and a backend subnet. So this is created. Now let's go to home, create a virtual network. We'll keep as it is. The name I can give is VNet. In security, since I'm creating a Bastion subnet, I'll click on this, and Bastion needs the public IP. Remember, this IP will be attached to Bastion host. This will be attached to the Bastion host and not to our virtual machine. Okay, we'll keep it this name as default, and IP addresses, I'll just edit this, name it as backend subnet. Rest all I'll keep it as default, and NAT gateway I'll give the name of the gateway which we created previously. Click on save. Everything looks okay. I'll create. This will create our virtual network with two subnets, one for Bastion and one for our backend pool. Now this deployment is going to take some time. I'll be back once it's created. Now my VNet deployment is completed. So now let's go to the main part. We'll create your load balancer resource. Go to home, search for load balancer. Okay. In this case, we'll be creating a standard load balancer. Okay. The gateway load balancer are used for advanced network appliance scenarios, not for normal VM load balancing. For our demo, we are going to create the normal internal load balancer and not the gateway one. It will select this. We'll give it as demo. Region will keep it as EastUS, and our virtual machine that we'll be creating also will be part of EastUS region. Okay, because we are going to create a internal load balancer, it cannot span across regions. Okay, again, as I said, we are going to create an internal, and it will be a regional load balancer. For public load balancer, I will create a separate video. Okay. Now So I've given the basic details. Let's go to front-end IP configuration. Now, front-end IP configuration defines how client reaches local load balancer. Okay, so it needs to have an IP which we will add it. We can give it a name as IP and LV. Okay, subnet again it will be our backend subnet. We'll keep it as dynamic and zone redundant. I'll give you one slave. Again, and now we'll go to the backend pool. We will click on add a backend pool. Now we need to give it a name as an identifier. We'll just give it as LB backend. Now if you see it gives two options backend pool backend pool configuration. One is NIC and one is IP. When you choose NIC, you are attaching the actual VM network interface to the backend pool. Okay, so the Azure knows that this is the VM it has sent to set the traffic to. Okay, even the health pro that I will discuss in few minutes will also know that okay it has to send. I mean we have to check this VM whether to check whether it's healthy or not. Now in case of IP, Azure doesn't care like which VM is having that IP. Okay, it used for basically the advanced scenarios where you want the backend to be some network appliance or a container or a custom system. So you can select anything, but let's select IP for this demo. Okay, and we are not going to add any uh, VMs to this right now. Once I'll create the VM, I'll add it to the backend pool. Let's save. Now, another major important component for our load balancer is the load balancing rules. Okay, in the load, this decides how is the traffic going to divide across our backend pool. Okay, so for our demo, let's create a rule where we'll allow or we'll create the rule for allowing a HTTP uh, traffic. So we'll give it as the rule name as LB HTTP rule front end, as you know how the clients are going to connect to our load balancer. We'll keep it as this. Backend pool also we have created. High availability port we are not going to use, and since we are using a load balancer, so we will use TCP. Okay, port will be 80. For HTTP will have the port 80, and ideally in most of the scenarios port and backend port like it remains the same. Now we come to health pro. We'll create a new health pro. Now this is basically the load balancer checks whether a particular VM okay is healthy or not. If there are some issues with those VM, traffic will not be sent to that VM. So let's give it a name. Okay. Now, the another importance is the session persistence. Okay. This controls whether clients keep hitting the same VM or not. If you give none, the traffic or the request can be handled by any VM in the backend from the backend pool. Okay. Now, if there are other options as well, if you see, one is IP. If the successive request from the same IP are sent to the same backend VM, this cases are useful if some state is being managed. Okay, but none provides the most efficient distribution, like most efficient use of our resources. Okay, and then we have another option is source IP. Source IP and protocol. If the source IP and protocol is same, it will the request will be sent to the same VM. For our demo, we'll keep it as none. Now we'll enable TCP reset. What it does is when this is enabled, Clients are immediately notified if a connection closes unexpectedly. Okay, if suddenly some connection closes, the clients will be notified. So we have created this rule. We'll create one save and we'll create our load balancer. This is also going to take some time. I'll be back once this is deployed. So our Azure load balancer service is deployed successfully. Now to test our load balancer, let's create VMs. So we'll be creating 3 VMs, 2 which will be part of our backend pool and one we will use to test it. So let's go on home, create virtual machine. Keep it as. So our load balancer was in East US region. So our VMs will also have to keep it in the same region because our load balancer is internal and a regional for this demo. Okay, we'll select no infrastructure redundancy. This will keep as a standard and size will choose. Okay. We'll create username and password. Okay, we don't want to assign any public ports to this VM. We'll be accessing, we'll be using Bastion to connect to the VMs. Okay, go to networking. We've already created a virtual network. Public IP will keep it as none. Network security will keep it as advanced. I'll configure this later. Then Azure Load Balancer. This is VM is going to part of our Azure Load Balancer backend. So we will select which we have already created. Okay. Now let's select this. Okay. Configure the load balancer. We'll allow HTTP. So we are configuring the network security group to allow HTTP. Okay. So this is going to be number name. We'll keep it here. Okay. We'll give it a priority. So this is given a priority. We'll give okay. Okay. Review and create. Now this will create our first VM. So let's wait for the deployment and we'll create the second and the third VM. Our first VM is created successfully. Let's create another VM. Okay. We are going to mostly create the same type of VM, just the name will keep it as different. So I'll select this quickly as what we did for VM1. Let me verify the password. Again, we are not going to assign any public IP to this VM. Go to networking. We'll select and the virtual network that we have already created and the subnet that we have already created. Again, we are not going to assign any public IP. Advanced. And the NIC will use the one which we have already created. Again, this is also going to be the part of the load balancer, which we will select it here. And that's it. We'll give a review and create. Okay, so this will create our second virtual machine. I'll be back once it's created and we'll create the third virtual machine. So we have created two VMs which are going to be part of our backend pool. Now let's create the VM which we are going to test the load balancer. So this we are going to give it as our name of VM test. Okay. Again, most of this configuration I'll keep the same. We'll keep using Azure user and then let me give you a password. This also will, so we basically will connect to this VM uh, through Bastion, and we will connect to the other two VMs where we will install nginx, okay, for our demo. Okay. Here, let's select the virtual network on the backend, subnet, IP will be none, advanced energy I'll keep the already one, and this is not going to be part of our load balancer backend pool, so this will keep as it is. We'll create a review. Click on create. So now this VM will be created. Next, I will log into the three VMs. In the backend pool VMs, I will install IGNX and I will show you the demo using the test VM. So I've created my test VM as well. I've connected to all the VMs which I created, VM1, VM2, and VM3 using Bastion. On VM1, VM2, I have installed nginx. Okay, and this is the test VM where we are pinging this IP. Now this IP is the IP of our front-end IP of our load balancer, which I am using it here. So now if you see here, I've run some test, right? And every time I do, I get a different response, VM1, VM2. I can show you to here as well. I'm getting VM1. Let's try it few times and see if we're getting VM2. Yes, now we are getting VM2. So this is how our internal load balancing is working. Okay. So if you see, this traffic is within our virtual network. It's not coming from public internet. So I hope this demo was helpful to you. In the next demo, I'll be creating another load balancer. Okay. As this is a series on Azure Load Balancer, I'll be creating each and every type of load balancer which Azure provides. So thank you for watching this video and stay tuned or subscribe my channel so that you are notified once I upload a new video. Thank you.